The following episode of the Comics and Crypto podcast is for informational purposes only, and anything expressed by the hosts or their guests is solely their opinion. This podcast does not constitute financial advice, and anyone wishing to invest should seek their own independent financial or professional help. Have fun and enjoy the show.
Hi, I'm Sean O'Hare, and I know comics.
Hi, I'm Spencer Vogel, and I know crypto.
Hi, I'm Kevin Lee Loader, and I don't know shit. This is the Comics and Crypto podcast.
Comics and crypto, crypto and comics, collector's world in a digital age. Comics and crypto, crypto and comics, it's where the next billionaires will be made. It's comics and crypto.
Thanks for coming back again today for another episode. We're here with Giant Size Comics. What's up?
Hey, what's going on?
Thanks for coming back.
Of course. I couldn't help myself.
So what I've come to learn about Giant Size Comics is he's a big collector in original artwork.
Kind of, yeah.
And lately on VeVe, there's been a lot of drops. Now we know there's weekly drops of original covers on VeVe as NFTs, 1's. So I thought we could dive into the market a little bit and talk about it. So overall, what are your thoughts on the covers, the 1-on-1 NFTs dropping on VeVe?
I think it's a great concept, especially to bring like more whales onto the platform, because covers in general go for a lot of money. Like one cover went on VeVe for like 31,000, right? So that's insane. And the other ones go for like 11,000. It's like big people like that really believe in VeVe are actually buying it. So overall, I love original art, 1-on-1. It's just something that it's a different level of collecting, I believe, because 1-on-1s, it's just, I don't know, there's more this scarcity, of course, but then if someone really wants it, they'll pay anything for it. So it's just a really cool thing to have, in my opinion.
Do you have a specific strategy in mind, knowing that there's going to be one potentially dropped a week on VeVe, potentially 52 a year? So over time, are we going to see some appreciate in value more than others? What are your thoughts on that? Like, what's your strategy of going about this?
Sure. So for me, it's mostly based on artist and year. Like, I don't know, Gene Cologne, right? He's a really big DC artist. I have some of his covers, really nice artist. And I believe that the artist really matters. Like, for instance, Neil Adams, he had his Batman 251 cover sold for like $600,000 on Heritage Auctions, right? And recently, Frank Miller had his Batman cover sell for $2.4 million. And it's an original art cover too. So for me, it's just the artist matters the most. And then it's context. What character is he or she drawing? And based on, what title as well. Is it Detective Comics, or is it Batman, or is it Action Comics? Like, the title really matters as well, and just overall popularity of the the character and the artist. That's what really matters.
Yeah, and to add to that, just an inside issue of Secret Wars #8.
Yep.
First appearance of Spider-Man in his black symbiote suit. And that sold for over $3 million, and that was a Mike Zeck piece. And that was inside. I think that was the first time we actually saw his suit, that artwork, right?
Yes. So that a lot of collectors, especially in our space with original art, we were very shocked. I know some people in the space, and they thought it was going to go for like 800,000 to $1 million the most. And once it went to 2 to 3 million, we were like, what's going on here? Is a hedge fund buying this thing? Like, just made no sense. But like I said, 1-on-1, there's one collector that really wants it. If there's 2 people that are bidding on it, that's all you need. And it can go to 5, 10 million. You don't know. But that is a very important piece of history, especially for Marvel. And that person really wanted it because every other collector thought it was going to go for $1 million. So just shocking. Yeah.
Yeah. And really, at the end of the day, you just need 2 people with deep pockets that want it bad enough.
Yes. It's all that matters.
Did you hear that Todd McFarlane story about the Mark McGuire baseball? Did you hear that story?
Yes, he did. He bought it for like $3 million just because like he wanted it. I'm like, that's insane. $3 million bucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you hear the story on our podcast recently when we talked about? So I heard him talk about that story in person. And did you hear that story at all?
So I watched his YouTube. So I saw that he was talking about it, how he really wanted it because he was getting into the statues. And he wanted to get like into like the baseball statues, so he wanted to buy it to show people that he's a real investor in sports. But I may be wrong. I don't know.
No, you're spot on. So what happened? He was on the phone at his home with a representative from the auction house, and the auction was going on, and it was one person that was there in person and Todd McFarlane over the phone.
Wow.
And there was 2 people bidding against each other: 500,000, 600, 1.2, 1.3, 1.5. And at that point, everyone that was there in person was rooting for this guy because they didn't know who was on the phone. Like, screw that guy, right?
Exactly. I mean, it's so random.
McFarlane. Yeah, no one knows Todd McFarlane.
Yeah.
And they're rooting for this guy, and they're egging him on, and they keep going out there. They keep competing with each other because they want that ball that bad.
Yeah.
And in the end, it sold for $3 million.
$3 million, I believe. Yeah.
And it was funny that he was talking. So I think Todd mentioned the other guy. He asked him, like, "What was actually your buy-in value? What was your limit?" He said 1.4.
Wow.
But they were competing with each other, and they wanted it that bad, and they had the funds to do it. It was so funny. Todd was saying at one point he went past 2. His wife, who was in the kitchen, like just walked out of the kitchen. She like
Walked out?
she just like walked out.
I don't blame her. It's not worth it. I don't blame her. It's wild.
Wait,
Wow.
here's the cool part about it. That ball, I mean, that ball's probably not even worth half that now, unfortunately. But here's the thing.
I heard it's worth around 500,000. That's what I heard.
That's cool, yeah.
But
But the really interesting thing about that story is that he was saying that he got so much publicity for that sale because it was the highest sports memorabilia sale of all time.
Yep.
He was going on Howard Stern, Good Morning
Oh, yeah.
America. He said he probably got about $20 million in publicity.
in advertisements. Exactly.
In advertisement for McFarlane toys.
Yeah. And so it actually worked out to his benefit.
It worked out to his benefit.
And look what happened now. Yeah. So Todd McFarlane's doing very well.
Yeah.
Right.
Very awesome guy, by the way. Super cool.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, what he's doing, like what he has done for comic books is just insane.
Yeah.
Amazing artist. And Marvel at first didn't really like his style. And he was like, I'm not going to take this. I'm going to make Image with Jim Lee and other people. And look, it worked out, you know. And we got like what Invincible 1 we got out of him. So I mean, it still worked out, you know.
So cool.
Yeah.
So cool. Going back to VeVe, what's your buying strategy now for like knowing that with these comics coming? I know you said you're focusing on like the characters, the artists, the year.
Yeah.
Are you holding off for any specific significant covers possibly, or?
I'm holding off for Spider-Man covers, which just is like right now it's going to come up with Ramos's cover. I want to get that, but honestly, I bought so many VeVe comics. I don't really have the funds right now to spend like 10, 20,000 on VeVe. So yeah, Spider-Man and just a really well-known artist. And I can figure that out based on, Comic Art Tracker or Comic Art Fans. They're 2 great websites that I put on my channel. I can, check it out if you want to. And you can find out if an artist is really in demand or not. And just based off of their track record, it's like Ramos he's a great artist. And I figured out that his art is like his cover art is worth roughly $3,000 to $8,000 based on, of course, context and how much work you put into it. So to me, the one that's going to drop this Monday is a great buy. If it's like $3,000 to $5,000, it's a solid buy. Spider-Man's all over the place, high demand for Spider-Man, and it's a win-win at that point. So yeah, Spider-Man and a good artist. That's what I believe.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You're referring to Humberto Ramos, correct?
Ramos, yes.
Yeah. I actually, so I have a 9/8 First Prince of Silk, the Ramos variant. Yeah, and it's signed by Stan Lee, which is really cool.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I know, right?
Cool. Yeah,
I feel like Stan Lee on any Marvel IP makes sense. And when you start mixing artists and different, and aren't really like,
gets interesting about it.
Because Stan Lee is probably one of the only people where it's like he can get signature on anything Marvel, and it's actually totally okay.
I mean, at one point he was a director of Marvel, I believe, back in the day. What he had like editor, something like that. Yeah, he was
editor in chief, and then Roy Thomas took over after him. But yeah, very interesting.
He could sign anything. Doesn't matter.
It's really exciting. These cover arts. I mean, even Todd McFarlane was talking about how 1992 and on, his artwork is not for sale. He owns all of his artwork in covers. Like you will not find them anywhere. So
we talk about this, which honestly, I don't blame him, to be honest. I mean, once you see what his art sells for in Heritage, I mean, his ASM 300 cover, which is iconic, is sold for like, I don't know, 300,000 years ago, right? Now it's worth over $1, $2, $3 million easily.
That has to be a $5+ million comp.
And just imagine what he sold it for. I just wonder at that point.
It's truly a one of one. So those are tricky. Like we mentioned with the Spider-Man suit, you thought maybe go around 500 to 1,000 to 1 million, and it went over 3. That's crazy. So when you have it's sometimes you just find the right buyer at the right time, or even better, the right buyers at the right time that want it bad enough. And considering the popularity of ASM 300, it's very easy to presume, and also the possibility of getting his artwork.
Yeah,
all adds up to dollar bills,
I mean, just in general, a Tom McFarlane art piece in general, like even like interior pages go for like 10, 20, 30,000. So just to have a cover by him, especially an iconic cover, I mean, come on, that's a multi-million-dollar piece right there. So yeah.
Scarcity and popularity. And that's something you should definitely do your research into these covers, because it's very possible that the physical counterpart may have never sold or ever will sell.
Sure.
Sometimes the artists, I think, big shout out to Old Rhubarb. He did some research for Peach Loco, and apparently I think she still has her physical and she's never going to sell it. Great research there, and also adds to your point. I mean, sometimes maybe the only opportunity to own these things are in the NFT space, which is going to make it very interesting for investors long term.
And like, honestly, I really like this aspect of VeVe dropping it because it's a blind auction, so it can go for anything essentially. But if you have a number in mind, you can possibly get it for that number. Whereas opposed to like, if you go to like a Comic-Con and a dealer has a cover that you love, but he or she is asking $50,000 because they just love it themselves, I mean, you're never going to get it, you know what I mean? So VeVe is giving you the opportunity to buy it at a good price. It's possible. So,
and you could even potentially snipe a good deal.
Yeah, definitely possible. Yeah, so I mean, you can get it. Sure.
No, go ahead.
Like if you can get like a cover for like $3,000 or $5,000, I mean, just in general, that's a great buy, especially for comic book covers. It's insane. So yeah.
I will say the one thing that Spencer and I have talked about in the past, and I'm very concerned about, are people who are making fake or bids and aren't following through on those sales transactions. They need to have harsh punishments.
It has happened. Warhol, what happened there?
Being banned for 48 hours in the marketplace, or even like a couple weeks, just isn't harsh enough, in my opinion. It should be like, I'm not going to screw with that. I'm not going to play with that fire. Like,
yeah, no, I agree with you. Yeah. But then again, a buyer at that level that's willing to bid, let's say 40,000, I think that's what Warhol went for, and then he or she backed out at the last minute. I mean, VeVe doesn't want to lose a big buyer like that, I believe. So they're just like, you know what, a slap on the wrist, don't do it again. But, you know, in the future, just please be better. You know what I mean? I think that's what's going on.
Are they a serious buyer, though, at that point? I mean, they didn't follow through with the payment. So
I agree with you.
It's just like, you know, you put down a harsh, strict penalty,
yeah.
nobody will mess around with that.
Right? Yeah, I believe that once you make your bid, VeVe should just take the gems out of your account, and it should just sit like an escrow. And then if you do win it, that's gone. You know what I mean?
Well, I love that. That's great. Yeah,
that should definitely happen.
Front. I like that. That's actually probably the best solution to all this.
Yeah, honestly, it will never happen again. Oh,
exactly.
Yeah.
So you own one of these pieces.
Yep.
What next? You know, what kind of utility could we potentially see with these collectibles? I mean, just owning this artwork is amazing within itself, but, you know, possibly having the opportunity to rent these out so people can enjoy them, and whether the metaverse or even augmented reality. I mean, are people, do you know of anybody that's actually enjoying this artwork, like having galleries or shows in person in real life?
Personally, with VeVe stuff, not really. But in the physical world, I literally saw a video where this guy had like a, I don't know, like exhibition like in his apartment in New York City, right? And like people from around the country literally flew to go see his stuff. So that to me is insane. You know, people are very, very passionate about original art, and they're willing to do anything to see it. So for sure there is utility with original art on VeVe, especially if someone's willing to fly from California to New York to see it. I mean, definitely it's going to happen.
There you go. So having the opportunity to do something similar, whether it's an augmented reality or even something that can affect people worldwide in the metaverse, there's significant opportunity there. And that was a perfect example that you just shared.
A couple of years ago, my father, back in the 90s, he bought an original art cover. I'm not going to say which one because then people are just going to research it and see who bought it. So I don't want to say that. But he bought it back in the 90s for $350. And then I put it on a website. And I'd just like to show my art covers, like just to people that love original art. And this person reached out to me and said, "Hey, do you want to sell it?" And I was like, "No, I love it. It's mine." So it's not for sale. And all of a sudden he's like, "Listen, I've been looking for it for 10 years. So I need this cover." And I'm like, "Cool." And he's like, "I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse." And I said, "Listen, I love offers that I can't refuse." I said, "Of course, give me the offer." And he tells me 40,000. And I'm like, "Oh." And I call my dad. I'm like, because he's the one that bought it. I'm like, "Dad, do you want to sell it?" And he was just like, "No, 40 grand, no, let's just keep it." And then we counter him at 60, and then he tells me, "Listen, my top dollar is 52,000. Now, granted, he bought it for $350 back in the 90s, right? So I'm here in between both of them, and I'm like $52,000 for a cover that he spent $350 on. And long story short, we agreed. The guy mailed the check to me. Everything cleared. My dad delivered it to him. It was a done deal, just because the guy really wanted it. Now, however, based on the artist and the context, it's worth around $25,000 to $30,000. So he overpaid by $20,000 to $25,000 because he really wanted it, and it's a 1 out of 1. So that could potentially happen on VeVe if you buy a cover for $5,000, $10,000. Someone might say, "Hey, I really want that cover. I love that artist. I'm going to pay you $20,000 or $30,000." It's definitely a possibility.
That's very interesting. Yeah. And going deeper, I mean, even aside from the artwork, you could look at potentially mint numbers as well. A lot of mint numbers are 1 of 1s, you know, whether it's tied to the publishing year or something that's significant to them, like a birthday. I'm right now I'm bidding on, and there's nobody bidding on it. I need one golden moment left to complete my collection. It's the Disney D. And the number was 7/11, which is my birthday, and it ends in an hour from now. I'm the only bidder on it, and it's a ground floor. And I'm like, oh my gosh, am I gonna? It's very serendipitous. Like,
interesting. I've actually never done auctions before. I never did a VeVe auction. I always do the buy now. But as my brother did buys.
Oh yeah, I've gotten some really good deals on auctions for sure. Like really, I got an AF15, like a sub 300 AF15 UR.
Really?
Yeah, Spencer, Kevin, and I went in on it around, I think it was around 3K, around that.
Yeah, that's really good.
It was 2x the floor, for a super low mid. Yeah. I've gotten a 993 Marvel Comics 1 UR for 600 gems.
Wow.
Yeah, that was right before the market took off.
Oh, okay.
Even then, I was the only bidder, and I was shocked that I was able to get it for that because it was around 400 gems, I think, at the time.
Yeah, it's like $200 more. Why not?
Oh yeah, it's crazy for a 3-digit mint of FC1. That's crazy.
Wow. Oh, yeah.
But yeah, definitely keep your eye on the auctions. There's definitely some good opportunities.
Oh, I will. I had no idea. I mean, I saw it, of course, but I never thought, oh, maybe I might not get a good deal because people are going to ask crazy money. But then again, you're right. If it's a really low floor, like a really low auction price, why not? You could get a good deal. So for sure.
Exactly. Now, going back to the opportunity to rent these collectibles, these 1 of 1s especially, I'm very excited about that. You know, right now the technology isn't there yet, so the opportunity hasn't come to fruition. But just based on the facts that we know is coming, man, it's hard not to see this come to fruition. To potentially make some solid passive income on these collectibles.
Oh, for sure.
And that's
for sure. I mean, I saw before. I saw Johnny Dunn, and he buys a lot of cars on VeVe because he thinks he could rent it out in the future to people. I think that's a really smart idea. I mean, that's definitely a possibility that might happen. So to buy a car for like 50 or 100 gems, maybe a little bit more, you could rent it out for that much probably in the future anyway, and you can make 10 extra money or even more. I mean, why not? You know, it's definitely a possibility.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as the technology develops and as the metaverse comes to fruition, I mean, man, who knows?
Yeah. I mean, limitless possibilities. You know what I mean? So we'll see what happens.
Exactly. Yeah. Another awesome video. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank
Giant Size Comics. Make sure to follow him at Giant Size Comics on both Twitter and Instagram. And can't wait to have you on again, man. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
See you on the next one.
See ya.